Welcome back to Shinsen Sports, where the talk is fresh, and so are the hosts. My name is Trey,
And I'm Fred.
and we have some big news in the baseball world. MLB Free Agency, a lot of minor signings so far. I'll say, and a big trade and a major signing. So
Right.
you got Otani's $700 million contract for 10 years for the Los
Yeah.
Angeles Dodgers. So I mean, let's start there.
So it's been a couple of months since we got together. So I think the last time we were speaking of baseball, the playoffs were starting and so forth.
Right.
I reviewed some of what we discussed. I realized that I was completely wrong about the Texas Rangers.
Yeah.
But we were absolutely right about Shohei Ohtani that he would stay on the West Coast, which was
Right.
always the speculation. And yes, I guess they're now that we're in the off season, a lot of movement. Other than the Texas Rangers, everybody's now trying to catch up to them, so they're making moves. So the biggest move so far obviously is the top free agent Shohei Ohtani, as you said, signed a $700 million contract.
Right.
Obviously the value of the total contract was a big shock, I think, to everybody. Everybody was speculating at probably 50 or 500 million or $50 million a year for the next 10
Yeah.
years.
Well, after the injury, everybody thought it would go down too.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's a where on the face of it, it looked like a huge risk that the Dodgers were taking, committing that much money to Ohtani, who may never pitch again. We don't know, how he's going to recover from his. I guess it was an elbow surgery, right?
Tommy John
Um,
two
yeah.
times in time.
So, you know, but so is $70 million a year what
Well, did did you see how his contract is structured?
yeah. So that's what I was getting at. I mean, the initial reaction is the huge value of the contract itself, but then as it turns out, $68 million a year is deferred, for the first 10 years. So so that means there's $680 million of it on the 11th year that they start paying, or the Dodgers will start paying, in 2034 or something like that is when
Yeah, I
they
think
start paying. Yeah.
2034. Yeah.
Yep. And then they pay $68 million a year until 2043 or something to that effect.
That's right. Yeah.
Um, and from what I understand, according to MLB's collective bargaining agreement, there is no limit as to how much money you could defer.
Mhm.
So this, the contract and the form of it is completely legal. But, when you look at it, it doesn't seem all that fair,
Oh,
right?
yeah. I mean, I was looking at that and I'm like, you couldn't give him a little bit more than 2 million over the time. But I think that their logic as a team is they kind of use this as a way to say, look, show we're gonna build the team with this money that we're saving from spending you. So they're using that as a way to say we're gonna guarantee you like a World Series or something like that.
Right.
So if they have more money to spend, it turns into more players.
Well, certainly if they're only paying, Ohtani $2 million a year,
Yeah.
uh, heck, they could invest a ton more money on other top players, including Yamamoto, that's coming out of Japan, who's their top pitcher right now. Um, who's won two or three consecutive, uh, Japanese Baseball League, equivalent of the Cy Young. Kid's only 25 years old. So, I mean, they could do the same thing with Yamamoto and almost any other player.
Right.
And I don't remember when the collective bargaining agreement between the Players Association and MLB expires. but I would assume that this is something that's going to have to be discussed. It can't. I mean, then anybody could do anything they want at that point. You know what? We won't pay you until until you reach until your contract's expired. I mean, what's the? I mean, they're circumventing all of the rules as it relates to taxes. It's not all these taxes are in the collective bargaining agreement in order to make the playing field a little bit more level for small market teams. But if these large market teams could just defer money, for 10, 20, 30 years, what does it mean? That you could circumvent all of those rules. So I think this is something that Major League Baseball is going to have to look at again.
Yeah.
Good for the Dodgers that they thought of this. I think it's a very creative and intelligent way to handle this situation. Heck, I mean, the Dodgers have had like a top three payroll. For the last 10 years, they have been paying these payroll taxes for probably all of those years. And this is a way, now that they're finally under a certain threshold, this is a way that they could, this is a method that they could use to to remain under the tax penalty threshold. So good for them. But I think they are playing with bending the rules too much, and this makes it impossible for a team like, for instance, the Pittsburgh Pirates or somebody like that to compete. And then now that this Pandora's box has been open, from a guy like Steve Cohen's point of view with the Mets, I mean, heck, he could make, if he could defer all this money for 10 years, he can make all that money through his business. And basically, from his perspective, it'll be like not paying anybody anything.
Yeah.
Because he would earn that money back because he's not having to, actually spend it up front.
Mm-hmm.
If you're giving him 10 years to earn $680 million, I'm sure he could. Right. So I think it's something that Major League Baseball is going to have to probably look at again.
Yeah, well, we were talking about how I feel like they bent the rules because we didn't see Shohei leaving California.
Mm-hmm.
I think all these rumors and stuff like that, I don't even think Shohei even really gave all these other teams a look. I think he's like, I want to be a Dodger.
Mm-hmm.
Let's find out a way to do it.
Yeah.
And,
well, I mean, one of the rumors is that he never even approached the Mets to get an offer from them. He was never interested. I'd assume he didn't approach the Yankees either. So he was never, as we speculated all along, he was never really interested in coming to the East Coast.
right. So with that, how much do you think Yamamoto is going to cost? I don't think he's going to cost anything.
Take into consideration that Yamamoto is supposed to be let's say Ohtani comes back and is going to be as good a pitcher as he was before his injury, right? So you have to take into consideration that his $700 million contract, a portion of it, has to be for his pitching, right? Is it half of the value of the contract, or is it, what percentage of that 700 million would you allocate to his pitching prowess?
Well,
yeah,
he's a top-notch pitcher. He's an all-star pitcher, for sure.
So would you guess that half of the value of his $700 million contract is for pitching?
I think I'd say he's about, I don't know, maybe crazy, but I think he's about as good of a pitcher as he is an offensive player, depending on the season.
Okay, so then let's say half of it is. So that's $350 million. All right. But you got to take into consideration Yamamoto has never pitched in the major leagues. So there is still a question mark as to how effective he will be. Will he be as effective as Ohtani has been?
Well, you
so
got to look at
you got
Senga
to
too.
what? Yeah, oh yeah, Senga pitched really well. He came in second place in the National League Rookie of the Year voting. Um, but even I mean, Senga got what 3 years, 75 million at 25 million or something like that a year last year.
Mhm.
So it's got to be more than Senga. It's probably less than what we speculate as Otani's value as a pitcher. So is it somewhere in the 10 years, $300 million range, or is it
Well,
something? Is it $30 million a year for 5 years? Something like that. But I think the number, the annual value of his contract is going to be about $30 million. It's got to be more than Senga's.
yeah. Well, he definitely has the what it looks like to be a higher ceiling than Senga.
Mm-hmm. And he's certainly younger than Senga,
Right.
and he's supposed to have better stuff than Senga. So got to get more. He's got to. So I think my guess. I don't know what your guess would be. It's got to be somewhere between the 30 and $35 million a year range, and I wouldn't be surprised if he got 10 years as well, just like Ohtani did.
I think he's definitely going to be a 9-figure contract player. I don't think it's going to be
Yeah.
as low as Senga's.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's going to want to play for a big market team. I don't know if it's
Mm-hmm.
going to be able to be the Dodgers again. I mean, they have
Mm-hmm.
Betts and Ohtani, the two of the top three, I believe, highest paid players in the league,
Mm-hmm.
top five. So, what do you think he's going to end up on the Mets? You think he's going to like?
Well, there's got to be some value to the fact that Cohen went to see him in Japan. There's got to be some weight to that.
Well, I think there's also a
What?
way to see how Senga developed over time, right? We saw
Yeah.
Senga struggled a little bit in the beginning, but then became a Cy Young level pitcher towards the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I mean, the biggest minus the Mets have going for them right now is that they didn't have a great year last year.
yeah,
And despite the fact that they spent all that money, they only won 78 games last year. But my thing with the Mets is that, and I think as a Met fan, we're always we are always playing second fiddle to the Yankees here in New York all the time, and it's frustrating. We're coming. We had just come off a 101 win season, and only the Mets could make a 101 win season, leave a bad taste in their fans' mouth because they kind of choked that division title away and had to play in a wild card and lost to the Padres in the wild card round, 2 years ago. And then they come in this year after losing DeGrom, right? Which again, this is to me the DeGrom situation was a little bit similar to the Ohtani situation this year, and that Ohtani was never really interested in coming to play for the Mets. And I
yeah,
think DeGrom, he was sort of finished playing in New York. He wanted to go to Texas, back to where he grew up.
Mhm.
So unless Texas didn't offer him enough money, I think that was his desire, was to go to Texas and pitch there. So as soon as that happened, I mean, heck, he had Cohen added Verlander immediately to go with Scherzer. They signed Senga. They almost signed Correa. I mean, that was another thing they did. They after they signed Correa, and there was all this hype and excitement from Mets fans, and then to have the whole Correa deal go down the toilet because of some injury history that he had on his ankle or something like that. I mean, good thing, and Monday Morning Quarterback. It turns out Correa had a terrible season last year, regular season. I mean, although he had a fantastic postseason, as he always does. But heck, I mean, if he would have gotten the contract that he was supposed to sign with the Mets and came to the Mets last year and had the type of season that he had last year with Cleveland, I mean, they would have booed him out of New York. I
Yeah.
mean, and then to top it all off, if the Mets won only 78 games on top of it, that it would have been he would have never heard the end of it. So yeah, it's hard to see how things are going to go. The other thought that I had about deferring all this value, or the bulk of the value of the contract, to 10 years in the future, if it was Steve Cohen that had come up with that sort of formula for a contract to sign Ohtani, and Ohtani signed that contract with the Mets, Major League Baseball would be up in arms that Steve Cohen came up with that kind of a contract.
Yeah.
And they would have, they would be, they would be amending the collective bargaining agreement today if if Steve Cohen had done that. But I mean, Dodgers are sort of, one of the darling teams for Major League Baseball, so they generally don't get in trouble.
Right. And before we move on from the Japanese guys, I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
ask you, what's with all the Japanese talent, and why is it becoming as big as it is? Right. We had Senga. We also had Yoshida last year. Is it because they won the WBC, or has this just been something that's been, waiting to happen?
I think it's something that's been waiting to happen. It's like everything else. You know, it's just like Europeans and the NBA. I think
Yeah.
the more they have an opportunity to compete against top level players, their level goes up too. So like, you sort of compare it to NBA basketball players in the Olympics, right?
Yeah.
When the dream team, granted, the dream team is, on a completely different spectrum, right? When you get Jordan and Magic and Bird and all those guys together, I mean, arguably, the greatest team ever put together of any basketball players from any place in the world.
Right.
They're going to wreck all of their competition. However, over time, the distance between U.S. basketball and European basketball, or basketball from from Asia, right? The spread is constantly become less and less. And U.S. even with their NBA players, they
Well,
have a harder time competing,
I mean,
against.
tell me if I'm crazy, but the top 5 players in the NBA right now aren't even American.
Right. It's
Jan,
true.
Jokic, Doncic,
Mm-hmm.
Embiid. I mean, people like that, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. And then, so to ultimately to answer your question, I think it's similar. The same thing is happening in baseball. Like
Right.
who knew about Korean professional baseball 10 years ago,
Right.
right? Now you have guys coming from Korea, but certainly everybody's known about Japanese baseball for many, many years. I mean, although it started even before him, it was sort of the late '80s when Nomo came from Japan to pitch for the Dodgers. Then he was followed by Ichiro and a bunch of others. So all these guys got to play, and a lot of them, after they played in the major leagues, they went back to Japan and competed for another year or two. Not Ichiro, but some of them.
Yeah.
So all these younger guys are getting to see not only their own countrymen, going to the United States and succeeding in Major League Baseball. All of these younger players, their dream is no longer just to play professionally in Japan. Their dream is to play professionally in the United States, in the MLB. And that's their goal, and that's what they strive for. And the more that they compete against the U.S., the better the young talent is going to become, and that's what we're seeing, I think.
Yeah, I mean it's very interesting to see how all these guys are just coming out now and making all this money, especially recently that Roki Sasaki guy who pitched on the
Mm-hmm.
WBC team, he's like, I want out of Japan, like
Yeah,
let me go to the MLB. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting thing for the future of the MLB.
yeah, yeah.
But straying away from the Japanese, the other big deal is
Mm-hmm.
Juan Soto to the Yankees.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I don't see that making that much of a difference for the Yankees.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like when they got Giancarlo Stanton, everybody was crazy about it, and look at what he's done. Absolutely nothing. Juan Soto is different. He's younger, but I don't know. I don't think he's the missing piece to bring them a World Series.
So the major difference, I think, between Stanton and Soto is a left-handed hitter.
Oh, that's right.
And yeah, and Yankee Stadium is built for lefties.
Hmm.
And the problem with the Yankees lineup for the last couple of years has been heavily right-handed. Their two big power hitters are both right-handed, and that's not the way Yankee teams are generally built, or historically, that's not the way Yankees ever built their teams. Um, so I think Juan Soto is probably going to hit 40 home runs, knocking 130 runs, and probably back close to 300. I think it does improve their lineup greatly. They could have, Judge hit third, Soto back cleanup, and then have Stanton hit behind Soto, and you could have the right, left, right um, um, protection in the middle of the order. Um, the only minus I see, I'm just throwing out whatever the Yankees traded. I don't know their minor league system. I don't know the quality of the guys. I don't, that they traded away for him. Um, and we none of us know how well or how poorly any one of them are going to play. So let's just take that out of the equation right now. But the only minus I see is Soto is not a good defensive outfielder.
Hmm.
And Soto's going to have to play right field. That's his position, which means, Stanton every once in a while plays left field, but he's primarily a designated hitter, I think. I forget who the left fielder is for the Yankees right now. But which, this forces the Yankees to play Aaron Judge in center field,
Hmm.
which is the largest portion of the outfield that anybody has to play. Um, for as injury prone as Judge is, and has proven to be pretty injury prone throughout his career, do the Yankees really want Judge to be playing center field every day?
Well, that's why he
Um,
missed time this last
yeah,
season because of
right.
a toe injury that he got in the outfield.
Yeah, I
So
don't know, who else is available that possibly could come in and play center field. Maybe you get an opportunity to move Judge to left or something like that. But having, to me, that's the only minus. Forcing Judge to play center field every day is not,
yeah.
the optimal thing for the Yankees. And then, so now for me, kind of going back to the Otani thing, we sort of skipped, the team that Otani left.
Yeah, we did.
What happens to the Angels now? And specifically, what should the Angels do with Mike Trout? I mean, now if Otani is gone and you couldn't win with Otani and Trout, what are the odds of the team winning with only Trout and whatever, cast of characters, supporting cast he has around him? Probably less, right? The likelihood of them winning is less.
Well,
So
fact of
why
the
would
matter
they? Yeah,
is they have no pitching. Once again, they
right,
have nobody to pitch. Now they
right.
definitely have nobody to pitch.
Mm-hmm.
So that I feel like as I watched the Angels last season, that's how they threw away games, is when they didn't have Otani pitching a complete game shutout and then hitting 2 home runs the next day. Like they're losing games.
Right.
So that it's repetitive, but that's just what it is. You have these
Right.
guys who, I mean, even when they signed Giolito, that guy would give up 6 runs in 3 innings.
Right.
And that's just not how you win games, and
Yeah.
baseball especially.
So should they try to cash out on Trout? I mean,
Well,
Trout's another guy that's sort of, especially more recently, has always sort of been injury prone too. And then he's missed a lot of time the last couple of seasons, I feel like. I mean, isn't it better for them to, at this point, cash out and try to get as much young talent into their minor league system and sort of create a 3 to 5 year plan for the future of the team and not worry so much, about Trout anymore? I mean, should they cash in?
I don't think that's a terrible idea. When I think of baseball, I feel like that there's not that taking that route is much riskier than any other sport. I there's this the MLB, like, what is it, like the minors. I almost feel like you hear all these names and you never see them eventually get to play.
Right.
So building it that way to me is just super risky as somebody. But I mean, obviously, I don't know. I'm not a scout. I'm not a general manager. I don't see what all of these minor leaguers have. But I don't know, in baseball especially, I don't tend to see much young talent come up and play often. Like, you need to do however many years in the minors before you even get a shot.
Yeah, it's very rare that anybody, comes out of college directly into Major League Baseball, let alone come out of high school and play Major League Baseball immediately.
Well, I mean, we
So,
used to go to Cyclones games all the time. I can name one guy that we used to see who's in the MLB right now.
right,
Brandon.
right, that's it.
Yeah.
Well, like what we used to always talk about at those games, I used to tell you there's only like 2 or 3 guys on these teams that
Yeah.
that the Mets think could make Major League Baseball, and the other 20, 25 guys are just there so that those 3 guys could play.
Right.
And that's just the way it is. I mean, the system is built differently for baseball. It's not made for high school or college players to come immediately and play. It's just a different type of system. I mean, you look at the NBA now, because there's so much young talent wanting to come into the league immediately before they're ready. I mean, they've been forced to create a minor league system, right?
Yeah.
So now they have what I would, call a minor league system. What is it called
G
now?
League
That
Ignite,
league?
G League,
Yeah,
and the
yeah,
G League in general. Yeah.
with the G League. Yeah, I mean, so look at some of the top 5 picks this year been sent back down to the G League, right? Like two or three of them. Yeah.
Scoot got sent down. This one guy on the Jazz, I forgot his name.
Yeah.
But yeah, all the top guys are going back down because they're underdeveloped. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they're also young. I mean, they're 18. They're younger than you.
Right.
For crying
I
out
mean,
loud.
even Wembanyama's younger than me.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it's nuts. It's nuts. But so getting back to Major League Baseball off season, still a lot of big names on the free agent list. You got Blake Snell. You got Jordan Montgomery, who was really the anchor for the Rangers staff this whole year, especially in the postseason. We got Yamamoto that we spoke about. He's got another countryman, Imanaga, a lefty that's out there. So there's a lot yet to happen, and I'm sure there'll be trades as well, including perhaps, as we just mentioned, maybe the Angels will cash in on Trout. We shall see. But a lot A lot happening.
Right. And it's all a process, so it'll take some time until we see the
Yep.
final results.
Yep.
And yeah, you want to call it at that for baseball?
Let's call it at that for baseball.